This is part 1 of Dreamweaver tutorial. And you can go to this website, adobe.com, and type that in, and go and find David Power's excellent tutorial. And what he shows you, and what I will show you, is how to run and use Dreamweaver. Okay, so we're going to need to download a couple things. If you do not have Dreamweaver yet, you can click right here to and download a 30-day trial of Dreamweaver, the latest version. And then you need to download this first website, part 1. This is going to have our images and graphics that we need to build the website. So download this file and drag it to your desktop. And once you do that, then if you can see I have mine on the desktop. This is a zip file. This is compressed. So what we need to do is uncompress it, and Windows can uncompress it by basically right-clicking and then saying extract. Okay, and this will create a folder called Check CS5. Now in this folder we have 3 items: an image folder, a news folder, and a text folder. If we click in the image folder, we see we have some graphics. And if we look at this check comp file by double clicking on it, this is what we want, approximately what this is a composition, so this is what we want our website to look like. Okay, so we have a banner at the top, we have an image here, we have a box set in there, we have a left column, a center column, and a right column. Okay, so that's what we want to look at. So we have all this inside of our image folder. So let's go ahead and start Dreamweaver. In part 1, all we have to do is something very straightforward, and this is creating a site. Now we can create a site through this Manage Site, or through Manage Sites here, or go to Site and go to New Site. And what we want to do is call this site Check Magazine. And then where it says Local Site Folder, we want to click on this and find on the desktop our Check CS5 folder and double click on it. At the bottom it should say Select Check CS5. Then go ahead and hit the Select button. And it should say local. It should say local site folder. It should say something like desktop check CS5. If it says just desktop here, you didn't go far enough, and you need to re-click on that and go in and actually click on your check CS5 folder and go into that. If it says images, you went in a little too much, and you need to do that again and back it up. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to tell Dreamweaver that we want to store all of our files on our computer for our website. And by doing this, it's very important you always set up a site. Then Dreamweaver can create, anytime you create any links to things, Dreamweaver will create the links correctly. Okay, so once we're done with that, hit save. And if everything went okay, you should see it should say Site Check Magazine. That's what we typed in, and it should be pointing to your folder you created. And then you should see 3 files, a folder, two files in a folder, an images folder, a news HTML folder, and a text file. Okay, so if you have all that done, you have part 1 of the tutorial finished. And now we're ready to go to part 2. So now we start part 2 of our tutorial. We have our site set up, and we see the main menu here and Dreamweaver, and we can either click on Create New, or you can go up to File, New, and say New, blank page, HTML. In this case, we're going to create everything from scratch and say None. Okay, so you can, if you want, you can attach a style sheet here. The tutorial doesn't do that, but many people attach a style sheet. We're going to attach a style sheet in just a minute. And sometimes as technology changes, we update this doc type. But for this tutorial, it really doesn't matter. We're not doing anything that is HTML5 specific or needs any extra features. But normally we, for the kind of technology that the age of the website we're trying to build and the features we want, we need to make sure we say it's the right document. Okay, but that it will be covered and beyond the scope of this tutorial, and you can look for other things for different doc types and what the latest is. So we have blank page HTML, and we're not using any layout, so we're going to say create. And this gives us a blank web page. Our title at the top here, this is what's going to go on the bar. And every web page does have a title, and this is what Internet Explorer or Google Chrome or Firefox will show as the title of the web page. So in this case, we're just going to give it a name, Check Magazine. Now, we also see that this file is right now called Untitled 1, and it has an asterisk right after it. That means this file has not been saved yet. It is dirty. There's changes to this. That is not what's on the disk. So, of course, it's not been saved because we just typed in Check Magazine. So let's go right-click on this and say Save As. And the good thing about using your site is it should put your website directly into your site. Okay, now I'm just going to call this index. And the reason we call this index is this is really web server specific, but either home.html or index.html, one of these files is the first one that gets loaded on a website. Okay, so if you do not, if you go into a browser and you just go and browse this directory, the index or the home, depending on the web browser now, the web server, and you can look that up in the documentation. In this case, we're not putting it on a web server, so it really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to call it index, and that's going to put the .html on the end here. And you can see that it shows up over here. Now, if you put something in this folder and it doesn't show up, just go over here and click the refresh, and it will reload that and double check to make sure what you have is what it has. Okay, so we now have our first website we created. It just says Check Magazine, and you can see that the asterisk has gone away because we have saved it. Now we have three different views. We have a code view, and Dreamweaver will actually write the code, and you could work in either one of these, code or a design view. And you can just click to go between the two of them. We have a split view which basically shows both of these at the same time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to design view where we start with, and the way to build these websites, at least in this tutorial, and it changes through time as we have more complicated ways or better ways of controlling things, is to create a division. Okay, so in this tutorial, and to do our layout, we want to use just a bunch of divisions. So every time we need a box or we see something different in our layout, we're going to use a division. In newer types of technologies, we use other types of commands, possibly like Canvas and HTML5. But this is the most common way of creating web pages today. Okay, this Dreamweaver gives us the most support for these types of techniques. So what we want to do is go to Insert, and we want to go Layout Objects. We want to create a Div Tag. So we click on this, and what we want to do is the Insert menu is very good, because you don't necessarily have to be at the right place if we use this. And what we want to do is we want to say, this makes it safe, we want to say after the start of tag, and we only have one tag now, which is body. Okay, so after the body tag, we want to create something called container. So after start of tag, body, and hit container and hit OK. And we can see here that it says content for ID container goes here. Now if we look at the split view, what we see is HTML, and you can look at the tutorials on HTML for more information, but we see we have body start here and body end here. So a slash, basically body starts here, and then a slash body means this is the end of body. So everything between this body and this slash body is in the body. And what we told Dreamweaver to do is put in a container, a division, after the start of the body. So it basically means it puts it in the body. So what we have is now this div, it means division, starts here. Okay, so it basically has an argument, but it has its div and it's called container. Okay, it starts here and it ends here. So everything inside of this, from here to there, is inside of the container. Now we can either go here and as we delete this, we want to delete the text that says container, but we actually don't want to delete the container. So what you can see is I have a container, I have division, and there's really nothing inside of it. But now you can see my insert point is right inside of the container. So if I go to the insert menu and say insert layout objects div tag, and I say at insertion point, it's going to put it inside of the container, which is inside the body. So I can just leave it here, or I could say after the start of tag container, because that's exactly where I'm pointing at. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a banner and hit OK. And you can see now my banner is going inside of my container, which is inside of the body. And here is the text for the banner. Now for the next case, I want to insert something called main image. And I want to, if I don't change anything, if I go to insert and layout objects div tag, I want to put it after my banner div tag. Okay, so I can say after tag div banner. Okay, and so this is going to put it after this div tag, but before, it's going to put it between here and here. And I can say I want main image. Okay, so I can hit OK, and I can see that's true. It did put it after. Okay, it didn't put it inside my banner. It didn't nest it inside my banner, but it did put it after my banner, but between my, but it's still in the container. Likewise, I can click here, hit enter. I don't need to hit enter, but just to make it easier to read, I can insert another layout object, div tag, and I can say just leave it there. I know where I have it exactly where I want, and I'm going to call this left column. Okay, so now I have a left column, and I can do the same thing over again. Insert layout objects. I know exactly I want it right there, and I'm going to call this center column. Okay, so now I have a center column. I'm going to hit enter, and you can see Dreamweaver is really what it's doing is writing this code for you. But you could write the code if you want, or in this case, last case, I'm going to do right column, and I'm actually just going to copy and paste it. So I'm going to copy, paste, and I'm going to just change the center to right. And I'll just, this is just placeholder text. We're going to delete it in a minute. Change that to right. And I'll just indent it, make the indenting the same so it's easier to read. Okay, so what I have is, it doesn't matter how you go about getting this, but what I have is a container, and everything we're going to create is going to be inside of this container. So we're going to, our container is going to be our main composition, just a blank piece of paper, and we're going to put everything inside of our container. So inside of our container, we first get the banner, then we get the main image, then we get the left column, the center column, and the right column. So we get one box for each, we get one division for each of our boxes. Now, you can notice I have banner, main image, left column, and center column. Sometimes this doesn't refresh right away when you type things in. By typing code in, it doesn't really know when you're done. So there's a refresh over here, or there's a refresh over here. You can just go ahead and hit refresh, and then it will update it exactly what we have. Okay, so we basically have a div ID for container, and inside that container we have banner, main image, left column, center column, and right column. Alright, so go back to design view, and this is what we get. Now these boxes might not be, these would boxes basically go as big as your screen would show, and that's not usually the that's usually not the best idea. So what we want to do now is, now that we've defined these divisions, we want to format what the divisions look like, and this is through cascading style sheets. Now there are several ways to create these cascading style sheets. We'll go through a couple of them, and what we're looking for is over here in cascading style sheets. Okay, so if we already have a cascading style sheet, which in this case we don't, we can just attach it. We can create a new rule, and that will also create a cascading style sheet at the same time. Or we can go into File, New, and we can say Cascading Style Sheet, and we can say Create. Okay, this basically creates a pretty blank document. Just has a couple of things in there. It says what language you're typing in. And what we can do is type in #container, and then we insert our brace, which is the key shift and the key to the right of the P on most keyboards, and we can close this brace if we want so we don't forget. But basically this is cascading style sheet language, and you can look these up, but a lot of these things make sense. But I can type width, and I can type 968px. Okay, so what I want to do, make sure you type width correctly, width, put a colon, hit a space, and type 968px. Don't put a space between the 8 and the px, and then make sure you insert a semicolon. Okay, what this is going to do is this is going to set the width of our our container to 968 pixels wide. And this works pretty well for most people's computer. Now, this width has been growing over time as people get bigger and bigger computers, bigger monitors. But 968 in today's, as of today, is a very safe way of making web pages. We first started off at a width of about 640 pixels for websites, but we've been getting a little bit bigger over time. Okay, so 968 is just a good number. That is pretty safe for most people. Now you notice this hasn't been saved, so we want to go and say save as, and we will call this styles.c. Well, we'll call it'll add the CSS for you. So just type styles and it will add the CSS. And notice now this is saved, and now this is in your file. We can add a couple other commands here by typing in, and we can do margin left, and we can do 10 pixels, and margin right 10 pixels, and we can do overflow colon, and we can say hidden. All right, so this gets us and as you type in, you can see that Dreamweaver will help you and you can actually scroll through all the different cascading style commands. Okay, so this is just one way of doing this, and usually we don't do it by we can do it by hand if we know what we want to type in, but many times we just use Dreamweaver, which we'll do in the next case, to help us format things. But this is a very good first blank, sort of a blank page that you can use for your documents. Okay, last thing I want to do is set the background color. And I'm just going to pick the color FFF, and you can see that's the color of white. So what I did is I took a piece of paper, I made it 968 pixels wide. I have left and right margin, just a slight margin. The overflow is if I put a picture that's too big for my division, it's just going to cut off it's just going to show me the picture that fits in that division. Okay, so if my picture's bigger than my division, it's not going to try to mess up my layout. It's just going to use that portion of the picture. Margin again changes the our margin, and the background will change our colors. Okay, so these are all well documented. You can look these up. You can look through the tutorial if you want more. A lot of them make common sense, but if you need to see more details, you can look any one of these up. Okay, now we've created a style sheet. I'll save this last change. You can see now that the asterisk went away, but it has not, this index page is really not linked to this at all. Okay, it doesn't know anything about the styles.css page. So what we want to do now is we want to link this index page to the styles cascading style sheet. Okay, and we do that by coming over here and clicking on the attached style sheet. And what we want to do is browse. Now make sure you're in your index and not the style sheet. And we want to browse. So from the index, we want it to say, click on styles. We want to make sure we link it. If you're in the style sheet and you try to link it, it's just going to say import. And that's just going to copy it into itself, which doesn't make any sense. But here we want to say we want to link this index page to the styles page. So you should see a link. You should see your styles here. And then you can hit OK. And you can see right away that it has changed the look of it a little bit. It's moved it over to basically made the width here 968 pixels. Okay, so what we want to do now is, now that we added changed this, let's just look at a couple of things we can do. We can look at the live view, and this will show us basically what it will look like in Google Chrome. Okay, this is the WebKit. So this gives us an idea what our web page will look like. The other thing we have is when we click on different places, it shows us down here in this status bar where we are. So sometimes it's hard to we get lost and we're not sure where actually are we. And this is very easy to see here. And so as I click on different things, That's really the container. Okay, and you can see the properties that we've typed in now, and you can also just add properties here. That's a second way of adding more CSS things. Instead, I could have, if I forgot one, I can just click on, or I can change this by just picking a new color here. I can add a property and then pick the drop down list and add something, or I can double click on the container and I can get the CSS rule definition, and let's say I didn't, I can pick a different color for my background image. So there's a lot of things you can do here, and these are all your CSS, basically the things Dreamweaver will help you with in these in this dialog. And then there are more commands that are newer, but they are under here. Okay, so they depend on different style cascading style sheet length versions. Okay, so what we have is our main box, and we have our banner, main image, left column, center column, and right column. We have our divisions created. We have a style sheet attached, and now this is finishes part 2. So now we're done with this, and now we're ready to add content to our page. Alright, so the next thing we can see is I've made a mistake and I want to fix this, and I actually put the wrong cascading style sheet command in. So that's no big deal. If I click on this, I really wanted padding left and padding right here, and I put margin left and margin right. So we can do several things. We can delete it like this, or we can edit it. And in this case, you can see the padding goes over here, and I want padding left to be 10 pixels, padding right to be 10 pixels. Hit OK, and now my padding left and padding right, and I can basically I can fix things like this. Okay, or I can go to my cascading style sheet and I can just get rid of it. Actually undid my margin. That's okay, but you can see my padding left, padding right was added here, and my margin was added too. So if I save this and look at my index, I now have a little bit of padding here, okay, and a little padding here, and I am happy with what I have. If I want to make it exactly like the tutorial, I would get rid of all these margin commands and just make it exactly like 0 and auto, and that basically does the same thing I had there. Okay, but if you're following along, typing exactly, I made a mistake, but that's how we can fix that mistake, and we still get the same thing. Okay, we go back in design view, and we see now that has been updated, margin 0 auto, and that just gives us the top, and then the rest are auto. Alright, so that is our beginning of our container style sheet is now completely done. Now what we want to do is go into banner, and we want it to delete the content. Now we can do this either way. We can either come in design view and delete it, but what we don't want to do is actually delete the content for banner. So you can see I'm still in my division for banner, but I haven't deleted the actual banner division. And what I want to do is add an image. Now in this case our image is perfectly created for that size, 968. So if I go to insert image, it will go to my Css CS5 folder, and I just click on images, and I pick on banner. Now you can see this is the URL it's going to put in, relative, and you're just going to keep everything exactly the same. And obviously once you import this, you don't want to move these files around, or otherwise the links are going to be broken. Okay, so the alternative text is what you can see if people can't read it. So I just type banner in here, and now you can, let me go back to design view. We see we have a banner for our main, picture in our banner. Okay, now we want to do the same thing for main image. Now this one's a little interesting because as you notice, I'm in main image. As I delete the C, it looks like it goes away. But if we look right here, we are still in the main image, and if we look in their split view, we are still in the main image. Okay, the division has not disappeared. It's just that it seems to, there's nothing in the division, so it's sort of size 0 right now. Now what we want to do is make this division a little bit bigger. And what we're going to do is go through formatting. So we want to say new CSS rule. So we're going to click right over here. And we could say less specific. It really doesn't matter in this class. But what we're doing is we're just going to say we're going to change the main image. The main image division. And what it first said was container main image, but we're never going to have more than one main image, so it really doesn't matter. And this just makes the code a little faster, a millisecond faster. So we're going to just say main image and hit OK. And what we want to do is change this main image. So we want to put a background image for our main image, because we want to actually put other things on top of this. So if we go click on browse, and we want to pick, you can see from our composition we need to pick this main picture, so pick this, and what we want to say is don't repeat this image at all. Okay, so we'll say no repeat. Now because this is a background image and because the size is basically 0 right now, it won't show up. So what we need to do is go into the box and say the height is 376 and 968, and hit OK, apply, OK, and now that we see we have our banner here. Okay, so this is our banner, and then we have our main image. Alright, now we need to go in, and you can see our left column, center column, and right column. They are not the right size. Obviously we want to have the left one go here, then the right one go here, the center one go here, the right one go here. And what we want to do is first shrink these down. So what we can do is go into our styles, and we can actually type this. You can see here that Dreamweaver wrote the code for main image, and we can type in here, and we can say left column. We can put a comma, center column, and comma, and right column. And we can say, you know what, the width of this is going to be 316 pixels. We can hit refresh, and you can see that it has truly made our pixels, our column width, much smaller. Okay, now by default everything basically goes to the next line. So what we want to do is tell it not to do this by giving it the float property, and we're going to say float left. Okay, so we say float left, and we see that, well, the right column doesn't necessarily end at the end here. And if you actually took 316 by 3 times 3, you'll see we're short by about 20 pixels. So what we're going to do is add 10 pixels here. So we're going to take our center column, add 10 pixels of a margin, and we're going to take our right column and add 10 pixels. Now we can't put it right after it, or it's going to add 10 pixels to all three of them. So what we want to do is just add some pixels just to the center column and the right column. And we'll say margin so we had a 10 pixels margin here. So we had 10 pixels here, 10 pixels here, and now you see this lines up exactly the way we need it to line up. Okay, so we go in design view. We can go into our live view. It's sort of hard to see the boxes here, but it looks like it's going to show up correctly. Obviously we know we have 3 boxes and they're on the same line and they're the same size. Okay, so now we're just ready to add our images. So what we want to do is come over here to our content, and we can watch this here as we do this. We can delete the content, hit enter twice, and then go up 1. And what I want to do is, there are several ways to add a picture. So we can go through the insert image and pick our, in this case, our car. So pick car. We can type car in here and we can add it there. Okay, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit delete. I still have my, let's look at the code here. I hit enter twice. I go up. And then I can, another way is I can go under my, I can just drag and drop. Now I need to get the data addict, and I need to put it exactly right here. Okay, if I do it correctly, it should be lined up. If I do it incorrectly, it'll be off by 1. It'll either be too tall or it'll be too high or too low. And you can always go through the code and clean these up manually if you did something different. Okay. The third way is clicking here and going under assets and then finding all your assets and grabbing your asset and dropping it in the same way. And there is our helmet. Okay, now you may not want this extra space here, so we can move this up by 1. And we have obviously full HTML cascading style sheet formatting. We can put these things exactly where we need to put them if we wanted to. Okay, so we have a little bit of we've basically put our information in. Let's go back to design view here. And now what we want to do for part 3 is just to add some text in. So if we go back and we double click our text, we see we have some text here. So I'm just going to copy this and come back here, paste, come back to my text, copy, come here, same level, paste. These should be lined up. Come back to my text. Copy. Paste. Alright, so we're getting our web page. We just added some text there. Now obviously this text is not probably what we want. It's not formatted what we want. And there is a whole bunch of ways to format this text to make it exactly what we want. Okay, so we don't necessarily have to create a box just for inside Tesla Motors if this is going to be different from this. We don't need to create a separate box. We could, but we don't have to. And what we do have is different types of built-in formatting. And we can make things like, for example, we could call this heading 1. And we can actually put something back. We can put an enter here just for the time being and move this back to not heading 1. And we can hit an enter and do the same thing, make this heading 1. And do the same thing, make this heading 1. And then what we can do once we have this is we can go and redefine exactly what we want heading 1 to look like through Cascading Style Sheet. So for this left column, I'm going to click here, make sure I get the left column selected. I'm going to go say New CSS Rule, and I'm going to make it less specific. So this is for my left column, and I can do anything I want now with my left column. And I'm just going to change it a little different. I'm just going to make the, just so you can see how these cascading style sheets are working, I'm going to make this a light pink. And you can see now I've made that light pink. I can change everything inside of that to my liking. Okay, I can go to this next box and I can add a new cascading style sheet, new CSS rule. I can say less specific and I can hit OK. And again, I can go in and change anything of that I want to. So I'll make this a light lime color. You can see how that's working. And I can go to my third one and I can create a new rule, less specific for the right column, and I can go into my background and make this a third color, say a light let's say this purplish color, darker purple. And now we see I have complete control over these three containers. So I can change my fonts and my headings for each one of these, or I can change my container at any I can change my style sheet for any level. So if I go into, say, new CSS rule, and let's say I want to change my body, so I'm going to pick tag, and let's pick a body. So we have to find it from the list here, or start typing it in maybe. Okay, so this is body. So remember, everything that we created that container inside of a body. So if I redefine what body looks like, that means this will change what everything in our page looks like. Now obviously this is graphic, so that's not going to change. So basically if I hit OK, now if I go into this font family and I pick this Helvetica, this sans serif type of font, this will change the fonts for everything that's text that I typed in. So inside Tesla Motors, all this will go default to this font. Okay, so if I hit, now I can do this for anything I want. I already changed the background color to white, so I don't really need to do that. I already made my, everything else is basically done. So there's really nothing else in here that I need to do right now. But notice I'm going to change the font here, so I'll hit apply. And all my font changes. Now, if I make all my font bigger, okay, that will change the body for the font. And if I make it smaller or leave it or just get rid of it, you can see it has made us it has moved to my different font here. Okay, so now I can change just the heading ones also of this. So I made these heading ones, and now this is where you can start playing around with this and making this to your liking. So if I go to new CSS rule and I say, you know what, I want to change compound, and now let's just say let's just first select it and make it a little easier. Let's select this text here, and you know this is in the left column, and now you can see how this compound selector works. So what I have selected is the container, left column, heading 1. Now if I say less specific, this will change this to all heading 1s, and only have one heading 1 in this. So this would actually affect this inside Tesla Motors, this inside Facts and Figures, and this third Today's Self-Improvement. If I say more specific, it will only affect the left column's H1. More specific, only this container. Now I only have one container on my page, so that doesn't really make a difference. But this is how this works. If I really want to change this, you know, this left column H1 differently than H1, in this case I'll just change H1. Okay, so I'll hit OK, and now I can, my cascading style sheet will affect all these at the same time. So if I go into change the color, let's say I change the color to white of my text, hit apply, hit OK, you can see that my text has all changed to white. So I have control on that. Now I have structured things. It's really up to me to now decide what exactly do I need to do. I have complete control over every one of my boxes, every one of my individual items. Now if I click on this this text, you can see it is a paragraph. So if I wanted to, let's say I'm gonna go and I don't know, let's say, yeah, that's good. Let's say I want to center this heading 1. I can always go back to this heading 1, and I can go down to let's say we want to go to text align and say center and hit apply, and you can see it moved over slightly. This one's obviously centered, and now this one's centered. So every heading 1 I now have is going to be centered. Okay, and cascading style sheets works by letting me override things. So at the first level I can give all my commands, then I can have a very specific one at a lower level. And if I put something for heading 1, this will override everything above that it gets inherited previously. So my whole web page's background is white unless I put an image there or unless I change the specific color. Okay, so we're almost done with this. The last thing we wanted to look at is, and finishes up basically part 3, is how to make a hyperlink. And hyperlink, you can see where it says read more. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to turn off live view for the moment. I'm going to select this, and you can see I have a target here. And this is very simple. I can just point to a file, and what I'm going to do is point this to news. Just drag it and drop it, and now you can see that this has a hyperlink to news. So if you're in your browser and you click on this, it's going to go open your next page, which is your news page. And if I want to do the same thing 3 times, I would just click there and drag and target this news and click and target this news. Okay, so that's how we do hyperlinks. Now usually these will probably go to different web pages, but we only have one additional web page in this case. To do an email link, you would just go to the insert menu and you would insert an email link, and whatever you write here is going to show up as a text, and whatever you write here will show up as your email. So you hit OK, and now when the user clicks on that in their browser, it will open up their default email, whatever it is, if they have one. Okay, and it will create a blank email usually, and this will send it, create a message to this person. You still have to send it, but it will create a blank message with the to filled in. That's how most programs process a mail to tag. So that's how you do an email link. Notice we have our check magazine up here. We can go in live view and see what it looks like. You can finish a tutorial if you like. There's many more sections that adds different things, but this is the main idea of creating a website using cascading style sheets, using divisions, and linking and creating email links. Okay, so this, as we see that there's much more in Dreamweaver that we haven't covered in this. Many other things in here, but we've basically we're able to add our pictures, graphics, and then text to tell the user what they need to do, and we can go through and add these different properties for these cascading style sheets. As you can continue in the tutorial, it goes through the some optional or additional items like Browser Lab, which lets you view your your web page in multiple browsers to see what they look like. And we can see in this design that in Internet Explorer it looks a little bit different, so we need to actually put another little space here just to make that look more consistent on the two browsers. So Browser Lab is an additional feature that you have to get to be able to click in there and see what is going on. Okay, but now we have complete control over any of these items through cascading style sheets. Okay, so if we go into all, we can see all the cascading style sheets we have created. And under these styles, remember, we can double click on any one of them to bring up our menu. We can see our properties here, and we can create things like this. The last thing I want to do is show you how to create a template. And if this is obviously we did this by hand, but if we went to File, New, and we went back to HTML, we have some templates that have already been created for us. And you can see here is let's just go to something like this or something like this. Okay, so here we have two column, and this is liquid. There's a left sidebar, there's a footer and a header. If we click on create, you can see we already have basically a page that has already been created for us. We can save it, and we can call it, page 2 if we want. And sometimes people find it easier to take one of these templates and actually clean up the template and basically get rid of things. You can see there's a lot of stuff already, a lot of placeholders, and sometimes it might be overwhelming, but some people do find this an easier way to start. So we've done both ways. We've started completely from scratch, okay, or you can use a different method by using a template to start your problem.